why things eventually don't work most of the time. If you look at the starting point for most human endeavors, you have the human brain. It turns out that people are emotional beings that think, and not thinking beings with emotions. Emotions are affected by hormones. Not everyone has the same hormones at the same time. In one of the great divides of people, there are female and male people. They do not have the same set of hormones, and so needless to say, they often give different interpretations of reality. The best current science indicates that there are about 10 to the 75th particles in the universe. Needless to say, this is more particles than can be accounted for by anybody's brains. It should also be noted that the best current scientific theory indicates that 90% of the matter of the universe is missing. That is characterized as dark matter. We live in a world where our brains are required to make quick decisions with inadequate information. For example, if you are going to cross a street with a lot of traffic, you are going to generally make all kinds of assumptions about whether or not the vehicles are going to stop, continue on at the same rate of speed, or accelerate. If you miscalculate any of these, you are going to be injured or killed in the traffic. Our brains have developed mechanisms to believe false information. I could say I own a red pickup truck. This statement is either true or false. For the viewer, whether it is true or not probably doesn't matter. However, your brain is just as capable of believing that I own a red pickup truck as that I don't. We are continually taking in data through our senses. Even though most people are interested in knowing the truth, the data we take in is filtered by our past experiences. If we receive data that runs contrary to how we perceive the universe to be, a phenomenon known as cognitive dissonance will occur, and we may even reject the data in favor of our belief as to the way the world is. As David Hume said, there are two types of things we can know. First, there are relations of ideas. This would be things like 1 + 1 = 2, or the hypotenuse squared of a right triangle is equal to the sum of the other two sides squared. Each, even with analytic ideas, by Gödel's incompleteness theorem, there are statements that we cannot know if they are true or false. Then there are matters of fact. Matters of fact are such as whether it is a cloudy or sunny day, or is the Earth about 93 million miles from the Sun. In order for there to be science, it is necessary that the universe conducts itself in regular patterns, and these patterns can be knowable. For example, if you are driving and you want to go left, you turn the steering wheel left. In certain amusement parks, there are bumper cars, and the steering of them is not linear as it is in the steering in most motor vehicles, and so it is not always predictable where the bumper car will wind up. There is a jump in logic because regardless of how many times you make an observation, there is no logical necessity that the next time you make the observation it will occur again. Therefore, unless you can observe all particles of the universe for all time, you cannot say that they will, you cannot say where they will be next. If you could observe them all the time, you would have violated the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. If you look at the Gibbs free energy of most things people do, they generally acquire things that are thermodynamically metastable. If you look at a human surrounded by air, it would be a lower energy state if it were carbon dioxide and water vapor instead of being a hydrocarbon and oxygen. Similarly, plastics and wood surrounded by air would be at a lower energy state if they were carbon dioxide and water vapor. The only thing keeping this from happening is that there are some high energies of activation involved. Similarly, metals such as steel and aluminum would be in a much lower energy state if they were their respective oxides. Since plant products, polymers, steel, and metallic aluminum are only metastable, and life without them would put us in the Stone Age, most human activities are ultimately doomed to failure because in the end things tend to wind up at the lowest Gibbs free energy possible. Given that, both with regards to relations of ideas and matters of fact, we often cannot be certain. We are apt to be mistaken about any number of things we think we know. Therefore, most human activities are ultimately doomed to failure. Alternatively, how many people do you know who are 125 years old and are doing something useful?